Everyone, Mahojo here. Sorry about the darkness, but it's just time of day, that's how it goes. Today I'm going to talk about whether I think there's going to be a wider war between Israel and Lebanon again. I think this will be for the third time, depends who you ask. Sometimes things spill over into wars, and sometimes it's a bit hard to tell, was something actually a war, was it just a little skirmish? But there have been several wars between Israel and Lebanon before, pretty bad, but seems like there's a big possibility of this turning into like a big war that might be a lot more destructive than previous ones because of Israel's previous attitude to Palestine and the upping of the ante of the genocide. Now, there's a bit of like scrutiny and a bit of speculation about whether this is going to happen. I would say that, tragically, I do think that Israel is going to, literally in the process of provoking a wider war with Lebanon. Mind you, not the official government of Lebanon, because the official government of Lebanon still exists, but is only in control of the north of the country. The south of the country and certain aspects of the entire country are controlled by Hezbollah. They're a terrorist group, and now they're actually sort of a government organization. They actually now run mostly Lebanon. But it seems like the IDF is gearing up and is trying to start a big major war between Israel and Lebanon. You might think, well, why would it do that? Why do you believe that that's going to happen? Well, what people sort of leave out when they talk about all the atrocities that's going on in terms of Palestine and stuff like that is the domestic reasons behind it. And there are, if you look into it, there are these extremely ridiculous, futile domestic reasons behind it that are mostly personal to Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel. Netanyahu has been struggling to hold on to power for quite a while. He's been the Prime Minister of Israel for a long time. I think it's over 10 years now. He's very, very unpopular. Before this all kicked off more recently, for quite a while, Netanyahu had been getting a lot of challenges to his leadership. A lot of internal chaos in Israel, votes of no confidence, lots of elections happening in the same year. There's one year they had several elections, and it was a bit chaotic. No one could get a majority in parliament, a lot of hung parliaments, a lot of quibbling about who's going to be the next government, who's going to run the government, a lot of disorder. And this is because Benjamin Netanyahu does not have broad support in Israel. I think before this wider phase of the genocide sort of kicked off, he was having approval ratings in the low 30%, which is again pretty low for someone who's a pretty authoritarian leader. He's not a dictator. Israel is not officially a dictatorship, but it's a very flawed democracy. And he had very low approval ratings, and especially no man, I'll call it there. He had very low approval ratings. And there have recently, I say recently, in 2023, were increased rumours. These rumours have been going on for a long time, mostly since 2021, but the rumours increased and the likelihood increased of Benjamin Netanyahu being ousted by the Knesset, which is basically the Israeli parliament. And the thing is, in Israel, you can have emergency powers and an emergency period where you form an emergency government if there is some sort of national security threat, or these emergency powers are triggered by another emergency. You can see where I'm going with this. The thing that a lot of people don't seem to be saying, a lot of people don't seem to be pointing out, even non-mainstream sources, they don't seem to be making the pretty simple connection between the fact that as long as some sort of war, quote unquote, is continuously going, Netanyahu can directly have that lifeline to stay in power. So he is literally directly incentivized to keep some form of warfare or scaremongering or some sort of crisis going on as long as he can. So obviously that was probably a very desperate attempt in late October 2023. It's good to not be too conspiratorial about these things, so be careful, but it's always possible that some high up people in the Israeli government knew something about the October 7th Hamas attacks. I really would not be surprised if Netanyahu knew something, and maybe his attitude was a bit lax, because it's known that Netanyahu has used Hamas before as excuses to, you know, continue genociding and do these completely disproportionate civilian attacks. Yeah, but basically there's some evidence for that, but you know, it could have been a coincidence. There's a very low chance it could have been completely coordinated, but I don't really, normally stuff like that isn't true. I don't like to get too conspiratorial about things, but you know, it was probably, you know, some mixture of, it was going to happen and it wasn't a broadly known open secret or whatever, but there might have been something going on there. And obviously October 7th happened, there was horrible attacks, and then, you know, he was primed then. He was primed that, look, we've got this crisis landing on our plate for at least the next few months. However much I can milk this, I can now stay in government. That's wrapping up. It's coming to a close. Palestine has been, well, not Palestine, Gaza has been completely occupied, completely just leveled. The occupation is over. Can't really find anything else for them to do. So that might start coming back into the Knesset, and people are saying, even if they are nationalists, because that's the thing, a lot of them genuinely believe in the nationalism, and that's useful to Netanyahu. He can get them to think, okay, this is the priority, we must, you know, stamp out the enemy, or whatever psycho shit they're saying, genocidal shit, like probably must say some mad slurs about Arabs. But yeah, eventually they're going to be like, okay, that's all well and good, but now we've dealt with the so-called threat, why are you still here? You know. So the next thing is Lebanon. I don't see, I know it seems very simple, it's a very simple line of logic, but I don't see any reason why that's not the case. Why wouldn't he? He's an evil guy, his power is being threatened, he's already done a massive phase of this genocide and killed, murdered hundreds of thousands, and in a while, when the aftermath happens and the dust settles, it'll probably be millions. So why wouldn't he just repeat the exact same thing again, the exact same process, under the exact same conditions with Lebanon? You know, if you're expecting something to happen, you know, this isn't true, but it's that old saying about the definition of madness. You know, it's almost the exact same conditions, the exact same processes. Why wouldn't it? Why isn't it going to just happen again? There's no reason why Netanyahu is safer now. I mean, that's the thing about fascism, it's unsustainable. Do you think this was a sustainable, reasonable, well thought out plan by Netanyahu? Where, yeah, even in a conflict, it is technically, even a genocide is technically a conflict. Even in a conflict where there are proportionally barely any Israeli soldiers dying, and, you know, actually a similar amount of Israeli civilians dying, tragically, you know, a lot of them have been murdered by Hamas. Obviously nowhere near the amount of Palestinian civilians, but obviously that is still a significant thing you need to mention. That is going to piss off, and has pissed off, so many Israelis. The families of the hostages that got taken after the Hamas attacks they now hate Netanyahu, and so many of them are actively protesting against him and protesting against the Israeli government, because they have just chosen continuing this war over hostage negotiations. Because they've been on the ground, they've been involved, and they paraded them. The Israeli government paraded them at first for the propaganda, but then when the Israeli government just it became clear they just wanted aggression, they just wanted to keep bombing, keep attacking. So many now of these hostage families are actually protesting against them, and they're trying to sweep it under the rug. So it wasn't thought through. Why would you bring your country to war if you want more higher approval ratings? You know, that doesn't really work anymore, even in such a disproportionate, such an unequal conflict. You're still going to have damage, you're still going to disrupt a certain standard of life that people are used to, and he's chosen to do this unreasonably. It's not sustainable. He's not going to have better approval ratings in the end of this, so in his mind, from his psychopathic perspective, he just has to keep going, and it will just be Lebanon next. So tragically, I don't think there is much room here, unless there's a miracle, unless Joe Biden finally grows some fucking balls, someone comes into the room and says, no, this is fucking stopping now. Unless some big international power says, no, this is fucking stopping now. And this is what's going to happen if you don't stop. Unless that happens, tragically, I think Israel's going to properly invade Lebanon. Thanks for watching. Try and have a good one.